Alright, let me just switch my display here and we'll get started. Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Eric Whiting and this is my final presentation for my application Keep Your Word. This was developed for Engineering Software 1 at the University of Houston Clear Lake. The class covers functional programming. It's one of the first classes in the software engineering master's program at UHCL. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So Keep Your Word is a CMS application that uses Microsoft Word and a directory structure to render a website. CMS stands for Content Management System. Another example of a CMS would be WordPress or Drupal, stuff like that. This is kind of the same thing, except instead of HTML and maybe databases and PHP and stuff like that, it just uses Microsoft Word and a directory structure. So if you're actually using this application, you don't need to worry about anything other than making folders or writing articles in Microsoft Word. And I kind of intended for this to be used for like an intra-office blog or a newsletter or something that would run on an intranet inside of a company. So here you could have like a company newsletter or maybe user manuals for anything that you're using inside of a office network that really doesn't need to be seen by the rest of the world. And the reason that something like this would be better than WordPress or Drupal is because it ends up being a lot more lightweight, because with something like WordPress, you have to worry about SEO, you have to worry about social media integration and stuff like that. But for an intranet at an office, you don't really need to worry about SEO or Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. So the application doesn't offer those kinds of features and therefore ends up being more lightweight. Another reason this is a little bit better for office usage than something like WordPress is because all of the blog posts are made using Microsoft Word. Pretty much everybody knows how to use Microsoft Word. Maybe not everyone feels comfortable with an online editor such as WordPress's online editor or whatever Drupal uses. Not that those things are overly complicated, but you know, Word is just so much simpler and so much more ubiquitous. The way I've implemented this is that basically you have a defined website root, and inside of that root you have different folders or directories that act as categories. So whenever you go to a blog, you know, if you went to a personal blog, somebody just writing about themselves, there would be categories such as, I don't know, vacation, school, family, stuff like that. And those categories are, in something like WordPress, are usually defined by a database. In this case, it's just defined by Windows folders, or more accurately, you can call them directories. Yeah, so the Word files that live inside of those directories are the articles that are part of that directory, and that's pretty much how it's implemented on a high-level view. So here are some of the features. The original project called for 4 to 5 features. I could not hammer out the 5th feature in time, so you can see that I marked it as deferred. I won't be talking about that. But there's 4 main features. Basically, the ability to render web content from Microsoft Word documents. So this is what's going to act as like an article when you're using the actual web page. The ability to render a website structure from the folder paths. This is what I was talking about with categories and stuff. So whenever you make a new folder, you get a new category. The third feature is that article writers can submit articles to an editor. So whoever's the editor can view anything that a potential contributor submits, because that potential contributor submits the article as a Word document to a folder that is specifically designed for the editor approving or rejecting the article. And then the application is configured that you can do this approval and rejection workflow inside of the web page, but also if you're the admin, you can also look at the article in Microsoft Word, and you can approve or reject from there as well. And that's the fourth feature. Like I said, the fifth feature was that users can customize the style of their website. I didn't really get around to this. I wasn't like off the bat really sure how I was going to do this, and I just never got around to it. The original workflow was like this when I first pitched the project, and basically I figured a writer would write an article, use some kind of Windows Forms app or WPF app to submit an article to like essentially FTP an article to the approval folder, and then the editor would see the article, use that FTP app to, or excuse me, use that Windows Form app to essentially FTP it into the directory that it was meant for, and then whenever somebody would go look at the website, they'd see that Word article parsed into HTML, and it's presented via ASP.NET, C#, and all that good stuff. The workflow changed a little bit, not too much. I ditched the idea of Windows Forms applications. So basically a writer now, he's going to write his article, he or she is going to write his article in Word, and then save it into the the pre-configured approval directory. So there's going to be a directory where the site admin is going to expect submitted articles to be in, and then that person will read through the articles and do his approval process there. So that's what's demonstrated in this with the second little person there. He's going to review the articles and approve or reject them. If he rejects them, it essentially gets deleted out of the approval folder, or if he approves them, he chooses which directory the file will get sent to, and then that file will go to that directory, which essentially means that article will now be part of that category. And once that file is saved into the proper directory, any reader that has access to the intranet or whatever network that this application lives on can look at those articles. This is kind of a technical overview. There is no database involved in this application. So here's at the top of it, we have the application root. This is, on my computer, it's named Keep Your Word root. And then inside of that, there is the public website root, which is what's going to have these different categories. So I put category 1, category 2, subcategory 2.1, 2.2, etc. And you can add as many of these as you want. And normally you would name them something along the lines of whatever you're writing about. So if this was an intranet blog, you could put stuff like company newsletter, pictures from the last Christmas party, a company contact list if you wanted, I guess, and stuff like that. And you would just write all of that information into a Word file and then save it into that directory. Next to the website root is the approval folder. This is where people who want to contribute to the blog will save their Word files as pending articles. And I'll give an example of this in a little bit. And there's really no structure to that folder. There's just different Word documents will live in there, and once it's gone through the approval process, that's when it's decided which category it will go to. So here's some of the functions. So on the back end, there's about 7 functions here. It's 7 functions in general. There's a bunch more functions than that, but these are the main ones. And this is the handle approval and rejection. There's a function for sending the directories, the article headers, which is like if you wanted to see a list of articles, you wanted to see like what articles are available to be read, but without all of the content of that article being inside of the web page. You can just see a list of the available articles, and that's what I mean by article headers. And then the other functions are also sending like the HTML versions of the article headers, and the directories. And that'll make more sense when I show you the demonstration. On the front end, the functions that exist are the requests for all of those things that the back end provides. And then also the approval and rejection happens on the front end, where when a user is looking at a folder that he wants to, or excuse me, at an article to be approved or rejected, the user can do that from the web page. So that request to approve or reject will originate on the front end and then get sent to the backend function that handles the approval and rejection. Some of the features that are involved in this application for functional programming. So like I said earlier, this class is more centered around functional programming as opposed to object-oriented. So we learned a lot of different concepts about functional programming, and a few features of functional programming are listed here, and this is how I use them in the project. So the biggest one would be immutable data. Immutable data is a big thing in the functional programming paradigm. It basically means that a function cannot alter or add to or delete from the data that it's working with. It can do calculations based on that or take different actions based on the data, but it can't actually change the data. And I think this is a pretty prevalent feature of this application, because the application itself does not really do anything to the content inside that is going to end up being rendered. So the files are the articles are created and edited or whatever via Microsoft Word, and the categories are managed via File Explorer, essentially, where you can go and rename or add different directories. So there's no database, and the application doesn't ever really change any data. The only exception here is the approval and rejection process. When you reject an article, it actually deletes the file from the approval folder, which may violate the immutable data idea, but as I would assume that if you're sending this to, if you're a contributor and you save this to an approval folder, you've also got it saved on your personal laptop or desktop or whatever. So it shouldn't really disappear, but that is the only violation of immutable data. Another example is recursion. Recursion is another big thing in functional programming. Recursion, as far as this project goes, would be the use of subdirectories. So like I said about the categories being rendered via folder structure, you can also have folders inside of folders. And so what do you do about that? Well, what I did was whatever function is getting me all the information that I need out of the different folders, it just calls itself again whenever it finds another folder within himself. So that was how far recursion went in this project. And then first class functions. First class functions are basically functions that you can instantiate and name and just call whenever you want, instead of an alternative where you have to like write out the function, and in your code wherever you write that function is when that function happens. But in this application on the front end, the functions are treated as first class. So the functions are named and called and used whenever they are needed. All right, so I'm going to do a demonstration now. I'm going to show you the web page. Then I'm going to show you an article demo. I'm going to show you the approval and rejection process and adding a category. All right, so here is the web page. You can ignore this. I had to run Chrome with a couple of flags just to allow Ajax to be used on my local machine. But either way, so here is an example. This is what the web page looks like, and you know, I designed these styles and everything with the idea that someone would be able to, or that I would end up programming the functionality to change the styles, but I never got around to it, so don't laugh at my styles and my colors, please. Um, so this is like you're on Chrome, right? So this is a web page, and this is an article that you're looking at, and you see it's got, you know, unordered lists, ordered lists, headings, titles, all that good stuff. This is actually being rendered via this document. So this document has, this is a heading, this is a heading 2, this ordered list and this unordered list, and there's a function that, oops, sorry, there's a function that's parsing that document and rendering this as HTML. So that is the main feature that this application is supposed to be providing. So somebody wrote this article, decided to submit it, and the admin of the web page decided to approve it, and here it is. It is in all of its HTML glory. Excuse me. And so now I'm going to show you an approval rejection example. So I have this other document that I haven't saved yet. So this is something I wrote a few minutes ago about the application, actually. So we're going to go save it, and we're going to save it into the approval folder. Okay. So that gets saved into the approval folder, and then let me just make sure I'm filming the right side. Yes, okay. All right, so now I've saved this into the approval folder, and I'm just gonna close this so I don't do that again. So now we go to the to be reviewed folder. Oh, I had an exception because this file is still opened. Hang on. Let me close this file too. All right, so now we go to the to be reviewed, and this is another sample blog post that I just saved into the approval folder. And you can see here it's being rendered into HTML again. And yeah, so as the admin, I have these options down here to approve the article or reject the article. Now, if I reject the article, it's going to get deleted, and if I approve it, I can approve it to one of these folders. And I'm going to show you that example in just a second. Let me just talk about these real quick. So here's the home page. This home page is also being rendered from a Microsoft Word document. And then what I want to show you is this file structure is showing this category folder. So you see I've got test 1 and test 2 and to be reviewed, and you have here test 1, test 2, to be reviewed. So it's test 2.1 and test 2.2, that's in here. So, and then you see in my root folder I have the home page, which is this page right here. I can't open this document right now or I'll get an exception because the application is using it. But as an example, if we open test 2, this category, you see how I have sample post and sample post 2. If I go to test 2, I have sample blog post number 2. These titles are being generated off of the first heading that is being shown in the document. So that's what these guys are. And yeah, so that's how those folders are working. Now I know from the last demonstration I did that I can't actually change these names while the application is running, which really kind of sucks. I wish I could have figured out how to get past that, but I'm going to show you basically how I would add a category. So this is going to be category number 3, and if I refresh this page, now I have category number 3. There's no articles in here, but there can be. So Category number 3, just as an example, I'm going to put the home page in there. I'm going to copy the home page into there. Paste. So now the home page is in category number 3, and there it is. So that's how that works with the categories and the files going, or in the articles being saved to different categories. Now let me go ahead and show you the rest of the example for the approval process. So let's go to, which one's a better one? All right, notice how in test 1 we have approval example, no, approval example's already there. So notice in test 2 we have sample blog post and sample blog post number 2. Now we go over to be reviewed, and we're going to look at another sample blog post. And this is all that stuff you saw written a second ago. I'm going to approve the article, and I'm going to approve it to test 2. Okay? Approve article. Now, you see the page refreshed, and it took me back to the home page, and it's not in review anymore because the application deleted that file from the review folder, but it got sent here. And here it is, and I can read it from here. And then let me show you an example for rejection. So I'm going to take this one again and put it into the review folder, and I'm going to go to review. I see it and I'm like, we actually already have this one, so I'm going to go ahead and reject this article. Reject the article. The page refreshed again, and now that file's gone. So, and it didn't get saved anywhere into any of these categories, and it's gone from to be reviewed. So that is how that works. And yeah, so part of my demonstration was going to be to rename one of these categories, but I actually have to stop the application in order to do that. Like I said earlier, I really wish I could have figured out how to get around that, but I couldn't. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to stop and recompile the application to show you this. But if you wanted to, if you were using this in the real world, you would have to pause the server and then rename a file and then start the server back up again, or the application on the server, to officially rename these files. What I do know is that if we are actively using something like, we'll be in test 1 sub, I believe I can go and edit this homepage because the application isn't in that folder right this minute, and I can make a change here and just type this just so we can see it. I saved it. I'm going to close it, go back to the home page, and there all that is. So I haven't really been able to hone in on what I can and can't do as far as file operations goes. I just know that I can't rename a file or a directory or a file, and I can't look at a file if I have it open in Word like right this minute. Those are some of the constraints of the application, which I'll also get into in, I believe, the next slide. So continuing on with my demonstration here, let me switch this back again. Oh, it started over, goodness. All right, so some of the future developments I want to make is obviously the configurable styles. And what I mean by that is without using CSS. So I kind of started on this and got stuck more so in the idea of how exactly do I do this. Not so much the technical side of it, but basically the CSS is what is giving us the colors and the font style and where the menu is and stuff like that. I wanted to allow the user to configure that maybe even from inside the web page and be able to change things that way. But I couldn't come up with a good strategy for doing that. And since this class is only 8 weeks long and I'm in 2 others, I decided to be happy with the 4 features instead of 5. Another thing that I would have liked to add was bold and italic support, and this ended up being a lot harder than I than I envisioned. So it was easy to get all the content out of the Word files, and some of the formatting, like the heading, the ordered lists and the unordered lists and all that stuff, that was easy to get a hold of. What was not easy to get a hold of was if a word or a portion of a paragraph was bolded or italicized or underlined. And the reason is because that content was saved into XML, and the uh, I don't know, maybe I'm just a bad programmer or what, but I couldn't figure out how to actually parse that XML because it was in a very complicated format, I guess you could say. And I don't have a whole lot of experience with XML, so I kind of decided that what I had was good enough for now, and then I never got back around to it. If I were to ever try to release this to the public or try to show it off, I would definitely want to get that fixed before I do. And then the last thing I would really love to add that I think would be really cool is to apply Active Directory security and what is the word? Not procedures. Well, I would like to add Active Directory support to the application. So since the categories are defined by users, or excuse me, by folders, you can add groups to have read and write and also execute uh, permissions to those folders. And what I thought would be really cool, especially if you're using this on a intranet at an office or something, was that a user that was using this website couldn't see anything that his security groups weren't configured to see on the folder level. So for example, you saw that test1 folder earlier. I wish that I could have figured out how to say, okay, only the accounting group has access to folder or to test1 folder. Therefore, if somebody gets on the web page that isn't in the accounting group, they can't see test1. And I think that would have been really cool. I started trying to develop this, but I think because this is a personal desktop, I don't think that kind of stuff is like ready, if that makes sense. Like I'm not on a domain because I'm just in my apartment on my personal computer, and stuff like that. And also, I'm not really sure how I would have tested this if I could have just made new users for my computer and then logged into those. I'm sure I could have, but again, time was kind of running out. But if I were to market this or try to show it off as something, I would definitely want to create that feature. And I don't think it would be that hard. I just have to kind of learn a little bit more about Active Directory in order to do so. So that is my presentation. The end of Engineering Software 1 is close at hand. I believe this is the last week we're going into. I think it's March 16th right now. Got a few more days before it's over. If you have any questions about this, please email me, eric.whiting88@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching, and yeah, have a great day.